Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Genoa City was holding its breath. The courthouse steps still echoed with whispers when Mariah Copeland stepped out wearing something far heavier than shame, a black ankle monitor strapped tight against her skin. It blinked like a warning light, a constant reminder that freedom was only temporary. Bail, conditional, restricted, and humiliating. Reporters shouted questions, cameras flashed, but Mariah didn't look at anyone. She didn't dare, because somewhere in that crowd she knew the eyes that hurt most were watching. She was ordered to stay with Sharon Newman until trial. No travel, no surprises, no excuses. And no Dominic. That last rule cut the deepest. Sharon stood by her daughter's side like a shield, but even she couldn't protect Mariah from what came next. Because apology doesn't fix kidnapping. Forgiveness doesn't come on demand. And some wounds don't close. Later that afternoon, Mariah found herself standing outside the Winters' door. Her hand hovered before she knocked. She almost turned back. But she didn't. When the door opened, Abby Winters stared at her like she was a stranger. Or worse, like she was a threat. Behind Abby stood Devon Winters, quiet but rigid, protective instinct practically radiating off him. I need you to know how sorry I am, Mariah said, voice trembling but steady enough to be heard. Abby didn't blink. Sorry, Abby's voice cracked, not with weakness, with fury. You took my son, you made me believe he was gone. There it was. The truth. No dramatic music, no tearful embrace. Just reality. Devon stepped forward slightly, not aggressive but clear. Dominic is not your son, Mariah, and he's not a comfort blanket when your world falls apart. Mariah swallowed hard. She knew this wasn't about redemption. It was about damage. And some damage never reverses. As she walked away, ankle monitor flashing, she understood something chilling. She wasn't fighting for forgiveness anymore. She was fighting to survive what she'd done. Across town, the air inside Newman Enterprises felt electric. Dangerous. Because when Victor Newman is calm, it usually means someone else is about to suffer. And today, that someone was Kane Ashby. Victor stood behind his desk like a general reviewing a battlefield. Kane stood opposite him, jaw tight, pride already bruised. You lost control, Victor said bluntly. Kane's hands clenched temporarily. Victor's eyebrow lifted slightly. Phyllis Summers isn't temporary. Oh yes. Phyllis Summers, the wildcard no one saw coming, now holding more power than most people in the building. Victor leaned forward. If you want Lily and the twins safe, you will fix this. There it was. The leverage. The unspoken threat. Lily Winters' freedom hung in the balance, tied to a deal Kane could barely control anymore. Victor's terms had not changed. Kane had to take Newman Enterprises back. From Phyllis. By any means necessary. Kane left the office knowing one thing. He couldn't do it alone. That's why he sought out Daniel Romalotti Jr. Daniel was no fool, he knew his mother's ambition better than anyone. She's setting something up, Kane said carefully. Daniel didn't argue. Because he'd seen it too. Phyllis was too confident. Too calm. Which meant she was already 5 moves ahead. What are you offering? Daniel asked. Protection, Kane replied, and a future that doesn't explode when she does. Daniel hesitated. Betray his mother. Or protect himself from becoming collateral damage. He didn't answer immediately. But he didn't say no. Meanwhile at Chancellor, tension erupted on Billy Abbott's first day. Billy Abbott walked in determined to reclaim relevance. Instead, he walked straight into resistance. Because Jack Abbott wasn't about to let Billy jeopardize Nikki's interests. You don't get to burn this company down because you're bored, Jack warned. Billy smirked. You think I'm the reckless one? Jack didn't smile back. Behind all of it was Nikki Newman and her growing hunger for revenge. She made a bold declaration earlier that morning. She would take back control. no matter who she had to destroy to do it. And when she later crossed paths with Kane at the ranch, her words weren't gentle. "You gambled with this family," Nikki said coldly, "and you lost." Kane met her stare. "I'm not done playing." The war lines were drawn. Elsewhere, Victoria Newman was crafting her own strategy. She confided in Nate Hastings behind closed doors. "You think Billy understands the damage he's done?" Nate asked. Victoria's smile was thin. "He will." Because the harsh reality hadn't hit Billy yet. But it would. Johnny and Katie were watching. And if Victoria was right, if her children were disgusted with their father's behavior, Billy wouldn't just lose business. He'd lose family. That kind of fallout doesn't repair easily. Especially not when Sally Spectra was already fed up. Another fight loomed. And Sally wasn't known for second chances. But perhaps the most dangerous spiral wasn't happening in a boardroom. It was happening in secret. In the shadows. Because Nick Newman thought he could hide it. It's the bag. It's the powder. The dependency. Until Sharon walked in at exactly the wrong moment. "What is that?" she demanded. Nick froze. The lie didn't come fast enough. And the bag didn't disappear quickly enough either. Sharon's expression shifted from confusion to horror. "You promised," she whispered. Nick didn't have a defense. Fentanyl isn't a casual mistake. It's a ticking clock. And Sharon could see it. The man she loved was slipping. Again. Back in town, Mariah's humiliation deepened when she crossed paths with Abby and Dominic in public, with Christine Blair Romalotti nearby. Abby wasted no time. "Dominic is off limits. Clear. Cold. Non-negotiables." Mariah nodded. She'd lost more than freedom. She'd lost trust. But the most unexpected maneuver was unfolding quietly. Claire Newman wasn't done digging. She approached Holden Novak with a new tactic. Information. Trade. Leverage. "You tell me what happened in Lowe's Angels," Claire said calmly, "and I'll tell you something you want to know." Holden studied her carefully. This wasn't desperation. It was strategy. Because Claire suspected something bigger, something tied to Audra Charles and an old art dealer scandal. And if Lily was secretly involved in a fake kidnapping plot, that information could change everything. Claire was willing to risk exposing it. Because she needed the truth. No matter who it burned. As the week closed, tension tightened across Genoa City like a wire pulled too far. Phyllis was smiling more than usual. Kane was preparing something dangerous. Victor was watching everyone. Victoria was calculating. Billy was spiraling. Nick was unraveling. Mariah was isolated. And Claire was digging into a secret that could explode years of buried lies. But what none of them realized. The second week would be worse. Because traps don't snap shut quietly. And revenge. It never comes alone. By the time the second week began, Genoa City didn't just feel tense. It felt unstable. Like one wrong move could shatter everything. And the most dangerous smile in town belonged to Phyllis Summers. She walked through Newman Enterprises like she already owned the place, because in many ways she did. The board wasn't entirely comfortable with her authority, but they were compliant, and compliance was all she needed. She knew Kane was circling. She knew Victor was watching. She knew Nikki was furious. And she enjoyed every second of it. But what she didn't know, the trap wasn't hers. It was his. Across town, Kane Ashby was putting pieces into place carefully, deliberately. He had no illusions about how ruthless this needed to be. Victor's terms hadn't changed. Lily's freedom and the twins' safety depended on him regaining control. And the only way to do that was to lure Phyllis into overplaying her hand. That's where Daniel Romalotti Jr. came in. Daniel sat across from Kane in a dimly lit office, tension written all over his face. You're asking me to betray my mother. I'm asking you to protect yourself, Kane corrected, because when she falls, she's taking everyone down with her. Daniel didn't like that Kane might be right. Phyllis was brilliant, strategic, relentless. But she also had one fatal flaw. She believed she was untouchable. And Daniel knew exactly how to feed that belief. The plan was simple. Daniel would hint at an inside vulnerability, a financial weak spot, a strategic opening that would tempt Phyllis to consolidate more power quickly, too quickly. If she made a reckless move, Kane would be ready. And so would Victor. Meanwhile, at the ranch, Nikki Newman was done pretending to be patient. Her frustration had transformed into something sharper. Focused. She met with Jack Abbott quietly, far from listening ears. You want Chancellor back, Jack said evenly. I want what's mine, Nikki replied, and I don't care how uncomfortable that makes Diane. Jack's jaw tightened at the mention of Diane Jenkins Abbott. Because Diane would not like this. Not at all. Teaming up with Victor. That was one thing. But aligning with Nikki in a corporate war against Billy and Phyllis. That crossed into dangerous territory. Still, Jack had always had a soft spot when Nikki was threatened. And if I join forces with Victor, Jack asked. Nikki didn't hesitate. Then we wins. It was an alliance that would shock Genoa City. Because Victor Newman and Jack working together was the kind of thing that shifted power overnight. And Diane's. She would see it as betrayal. Over at Chancellor, the cracks in Billy Abbott were becoming visible. Victoria confronted him privately, and she didn't hold back. You think this is just business, she demanded. Johnny and Katie see what you're doing. Billy's expression faltered. That hit. Because Johnny Abbott and Katie Abbott weren't blind. They heard the whispers. They saw the news. They felt the instability. If they're disgusted with me, Billy said quietly, I'll fix it. Victoria shook her head. Not everything can be fixed. And when Sally confronted him later that night, the fight wasn't explosive. It was worse. It was tired. You're addicted to chaos, Sally Spectra said softly. Billy didn't argue. Because he didn't know if she was wrong. Across town, another addiction was spiraling faster. Nick Newman sat alone, staring at the small bag on the table. He promised Sharon he'd stop. He meant it. But fentanyl doesn't negotiate. And when Sharon Newman found him again, eyes distant, excuses rehearsed, her heartbreak hardened into fear. You're killing yourself, she whispered. Nick didn't look at her. Because if he did, he might have to admit she was right. Elsewhere, the fallout from Mariah's bail continued. Mariah Copeland followed every court order, she stayed with Sharon, she kept her head down. But when she saw Abby Winters and Devon Winters again, the air turned icy. Dominic clung to Abby instinctively. That hurt more than any accusations. You don't get to rewrite this, Abby said firmly, you live with it. And Mariah understood something then. Her trial wouldn't just happen in court. It would happen every day she walked past the people she'd hurt. But while Mariah faced consequences openly, another secret was about to erupt. Claire Newman finally got what she wanted. Holden cracked. Holden Novak admitted pieces of what happened in Lowe's Angels, the art dealer, the manipulation, the staged chaos. And buried in that story was confirmation. Lily Winters had been involved in the fake abduction plot. Claire felt the weight of it. If she exposed that, Kane's fragile position would implode. Devon would lose trust. Victor would retaliate. But secrets have expiration dates. And Claire wasn't built to stay silent. Meanwhile, Daniel made his move. He planted the information carefully, subtly, just enough to tempt Phyllis. There's an opening, he said casually. If you move now, you could solidify control permanently. Phyllis' eyes lit up. Too eager. Too confident. She made the call. She initiated the maneuver. And that's when the trap snapped shut. Kane had anticipated the consolidation attempt, Victor had prepared legal countermeasures, Nikki had lined up allies. Within hours, Phyllis found herself facing resistance she hadn't predicted. Board members hesitated. Votes shifted. And suddenly her empire felt less stable. "You set me up," she accused Daniel quietly. Daniel didn't answer. Because he didn't have to. The damage was done. Across the city, alliances shifted rapidly. Jack officially opened communication with Victor. Billy realized he was outnumbered. Victoria solidified her strategy. Claire held explosive knowledge. Nick hit rock bottom. Mariah braced for trials. And Phyllis, brilliant, fearless Phyllis, realized she might have underestimated just how many enemies she'd created. Because in Genoa City, power never stays in one place for long. It moves. It shifts. It retaliates. And when the dust began to settle at the end of February, one thing was clear. No one escaped untouched. Not Billy. Not Phyllis. Not Kane. Not Victor. Not Nikki. Not even the ones who thought they were just observers. Because revenge is contagious. Secrets are currency. And in the war for controls, there are no permanent winners. Only survivors. The next move was already forming. The next betrayal already brewing. And Genoa City. It would never be the same.